All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Elden Ring video. Before we dive into the video, obviously, as usual, rate the fit. What do you think of this fit? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give my man? Big Chungus is his name on this account. What is his fit? All right, let's get into it. This is my pure strength build in New Game Plus, and I absolutely am in love with this build. It is my favorite build so far. I beat the game on using Arcane, and now in New Game Plus, I have been running this, and it's just I'm in love. I don't know why. I just feel so powerful using this build. But this is a level 150 build, so we're gonna go over the stats. So if you like just pure strength with a little bit of some of the beast spells, stick around. This is the class that you're gonna want to run. All right, at level 150, Vigor is at 60. That is a must. That is the first soft cap. Not the first soft cap, but that is the most, in my opinion, beneficial soft cap. You want to run 60 Vigor between level 125 and 150. Mind at 15 because we are going to be using some of those beast spells. Endurance at 42 so we can use the Big Chungus big boy armor. Strength at 60 because that is the requirement to use this big hammer. We are using other weapons. We're going to go over that. Dexterity at 12, intelligence unfortunately at 16 because this is based off an astrologer class that I started. Faith at 15 for those spells, and arcane at 9. So let's get into it. The first weapon that I really enjoy is this giant crusher hammer. And most importantly, with the Royal Knight's Resolve for the buff, I absolutely love this weapon. It just makes me feel like a man. I love it. It's so fun to use. It's fantastic on some bosses, and also just clearing enemies, one-shotting every enemy that you come across, almost every single enemy that you're going to come across in this game. If you buff with Royal Knight's Resolve and you use jump R2 attacks with this hammer, I mean, you're doing 1,500 to 2,000 damage, and we're going to go over the complete setup, but I love it. It's so fun just doing these jump R2 attacks and just destroying enemies with one shot. And like I said, some bosses, this is amazing, and others we're going to discuss the weapons that I recommend using for those bosses. So that is the first weapon, once again with the Royal Knight's Resolve, Ashes of War. The second weapon, and I don't know, man, this might be my favorite weapon in the game. I absolutely am digging this weapon, the not heavy, but the nightrider glaive. This thing, if you look at the damage, it has 714 base damage when you're two-handing it. And if we go back to the actual big boy crusher hammer, let's two-hand it. We are getting 871. So this Night Glaive is competing two-handed with that giant crusher as far as damage. Yeah, it's about 100 off, but the move set that you can do with this, it just has a nice move set. You have the running stab, and then you have this nice overhead attack. This is what you're going to use a lot, this running stab and this overhead attack. This is good for like annoying birds that are trying to kill you. It has a really nice high swing on dragon heads. But most importantly is you're able to equip sword dance on this thing. And when you're wielding over 700 damage with sword dance against bosses and enemies, it is absolutely unstoppable. I am in love with this thing. It is so fun to use. Like I said, I think it's one of my favorite weapons in the game. So that's that. So what I like to do is I like to alternate between this and the giant heavy crusher for bosses, depending on what kind of bosses I have. So if I'm fighting like a boss that is not really doing a lot of dodging, they're more just kind of just aggressively coming towards you, not moving, not dodging out of the way. I will use the giant heavy crusher with a lot of jump attacks with the Royal Knight's Resolve engaged, and it's just great. But if you have a lot of enemies that are kind of dodging and moving back and moving forth and just moving out of the way, this Night Glaive with Sword Dance allows you to open and cover a lot of area to get in there and get out, and it's fantastic. So that's the circumstances that I would use this for, is those types of bosses and enemies. So it's kind of up to you as far as just random clearing of areas and tunnels and stuff, what you want to use. I just like to have these two weapons and mix it up, so I get a little bored, using the same thing constantly. And the third weapon I really like is the Gargoyle's Halberd. I like this thing as well with the Flaming Strike. So once again, I will kind of switch it up based on what kind of boss I'm fighting or boredom. But this has the same exact moveset as the Night Glaive, so the overhead and the running poke. But I like this Flaming Strike. For enemies that are weak against fire, that's really fun. So the L2 followed up with the R2. Oops, I'm out of the juice. Let's pop some juice. So the L2 followed up with an R2. Powerful, fantastic. And you get a slight buff by the flame. And then the last weapon I like is these Prelate's Inferno. This is a fun hammer. It does, I think, about 30 less damage, but I use this more for AoE. So if there's an area where there's a lot of bosses, I like having the Golden Land Ashes of War and just engaging this, boom, and it blows up and shoots these Elden Stars out. It is just really fun to use. It's a good AoE option. I really enjoy using that. So those are the weapons that I mainly stick to. So like I said, you can alternate between, whatever you want to do as far as certain bosses. So let's go over the armor. I'm using the Veteran's helmet. I'm using the boulder armor. I absolutely love this. It's just, I feel like a tank. I feel unstoppable. And now I actually took the arms off. I don't have any arms on because it puts me into a heavy load if I am using, what is it here? If I'm using the big boy and then I put any arms on, it puts me into a heavy load, as you can see. So I don't have to worry about that. If you want to, you could, when you have the night glaive on, you could put some arms on. I just leave them off. And then I use the bow goat legs. I really, really like this whole setup here. It's awesome. I'm using the claw mark seal, which boosts bestial incantations. That's what we're going to be using as well. So as you can see, the main spells that I'm using will be, these are for PvP, but in game, I'm using mainly the Flame Grant Me Strength for the buff, so I'll use that before boss fights. And then for range attacks, I'm using this Stone of Garank. So this is good. So if you got enemies that are really far away and they're you can't get to them and they're kind of annoying, you can use this and just whip rocks at them. Really fun, and you can do it kind of consecutively over and over, as you can see. So I can just keep whipping these things, bam, bam. They're fun to use, and they stagger enemies a lot. So if like a Crucible Knight, that'll stagger them a couple hits. And then, what else do I have? Like in poison areas, I have the Lord's Aid. So this will heal you of any poisons or anything like that, any ailments. So those are the things that I run there with the Claw Mark Seal. And now I stick to these 3 talismans the whole time. The Great Jar's Arsenal, the Erd Tree Favor, and the Bulgort's Talisman. I can't talk yet. So this greatly increases my poise. You see I'm at 116. Now, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm running the Knight's Glaive, I will put this on. Successfully, the Godskin Swaddlecloth, successfully attack. I can't talk yet. Oh my gosh. Successive attacks restore HP. So if I'm clearing areas and going around with the Knight's Glaive, as I'm killing enemies, it's restoring HP, so I don't have to constantly be using my flask. I will use that. Now, if I'm fighting bosses or I'm in an area with my big hammer, I will throw on the Claw Mark Seal here. Enhances jump attacks. So that is the 2 alternates that I will do between the talismans. So these 3 stay the same, and then I'll switch out those 2. Now, obviously, the flask, however you want to divvy these out, I usually go 10 and 4. And then the Wondrous, how do you even say that? Mix Wondrous Fistic. You can do this different ways, but for boss fights, I will mainly do temporarily boost max HP, and then I will do temporarily boost stamina. You could do it that way, or you could do, there's a charge attack one. I forget which one's that one. Enhances charge attacks for a time. So you could do this with Royal Knight's Resolve with a big hammer. That'd be pretty effective, but that's just the strategy that I like to use. So other than that, that is the build. Let me know what you think. Give it a try. Like I said, I am an absolute love. Also, one more thing, I am using the Mimic Summon. So that is the last item on the list. But I am in love with this build. It's absolutely made this game so fun in New Game Plus, trying something new. But let me know what you think. Give it a shot, and we will see you in the next video. Later.